I do not recall a time when the fractured state of our politics so accurately mirrored that of our nation. Brexit commanded so much more of us in this place. It was brand new territory, and for it we needed a brand new approach to how we do our debating and our politics. But these proposals for consensus building across party boundaries were rejected by this government. The vacuum left in British politics as MPs and parties struggled with how to respond has been filled with a racist and divisive rhetoric, which is creating an inward, nationalist and isolationist environment. What we've been left with is an angry country, one where people are angry because we're leaving the EU, or they're angry because they want out and it's taken too long. Most of all, though, they are angry with us. Even though, for the large part, regardless of what political party we're in, whether we are a Leaver or a Remainer, we are generally trying to do the right thing by our constituents and our country. I campaigned for Remain, believing it to be in the best interests of my constituents and my country. However, neither agreed with me. In the initial aftermath, I was in denial. I fell into the trap of repeating the mantra that people didn't know what they were voting for. They were lied to and they misunderstood the implications of their decisions. And whilst there was some element of truth in that, it was far more nuanced, because complex decisions and human motivation is never as simplistic as that. And I knew this because of people like my dad, a decent, kind, hard-working man, a retired welder from the shipyards. My dad and his mates weren't angry with economic migrants who came from Europe and crossed the Channel to work alongside them. They were angry with the government and institutions which exploited those migrants by allowing the undercut of wages, and in turn led to him and thousands of others losing their jobs. Mr. Speaker, none of us should ever underestimate the impact unemployment on this scale can do to an individual, their families and their communities. These scars are irrevocable. And that was when disillusion set in. Freedom of movement in the single market weren't problems for my dad and his mates. Governments that allowed unemployment to shatter families and communities. Governments that used the EU as a handy repository for blame whenever they failed people. Governments that made no effort to tell anybody the ways in which the EU was a good thing for decades, and then wondered why we couldn't get across the message in a few weeks. Governments that basically left them behind and created chasms in our communities. These are the people who constituents like mine had in mind when they voted to leave. I trust the people who sent me to Parliament, and in a representative democracy, it's my job to do what I think is best for the people who elected me, unless they've already made their opinions on the subject perfectly plain. They have, and over the past 2 years, they haven't changed their minds about leaving, so it's now up to me to see that they get what they want. It is my job to thrash these things out in Parliament. That is why I voted to trigger Article 50. That is why I stood on a manifesto that promised to respect the outcome. We should leave, but I do not want us to leave in this way, not with this deal. I'm not convinced that a second referendum would solve the impasse. My constituents tell me they find it a strange concept, a democratic way of overturning a previous, also democratic decision, which in turn supplanted the democratic decision taken 40 years earlier. And I also fear it will delay the inevitable, and we will be right back to where we are now, trying to find a deal that works for all. I do not accept that the choices on offer are as binary as this deal are crashing out. There's another option, an extension to Article 50, giving us the space, albeit a small time frame, to do our politics differently, to restore our country's faith in this place and show people we really are working together. But crucially, for that to happen, there needs to be a marked difference in the rhetoric and action from this government and the Prime Minister. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we continue to fail to deliver the mandate we have been given by the British people, what little trust remains in politics and politicians will surely evaporate.